Everyone, it's Regular Girl, and I'm back, and so I want to continue on. And one of the first things that I want to talk about is that one of the things that happened with the beginning of this administration is that the funding was cut with all of the substance abuse industry. Funding was cut, and so there was a bit of panic and scrambling because it had been riding high. As soon as alcoholism was declared a disease, and states that Narcotics Anonymous couldn't even hold a meeting in, that stuff was handled. They were riding high. They were getting some pretty good monies there. And the certification requirements lowered over the years. Counselors were not people who had degrees in clinical psychology. They were social workers. And then they just made a simple category for substance abuse counselor. And that's who you had. You had these little cookie cutter substance abuse counselors. And the state didn't have to pay them very much money at all. And boy, there was a new career for somebody. You had somebody who went through the program, recovered addicts, and they really knew the shtick and the talk, and that's who was hired. And onward and upward we went over the years, but then boom, funding cut. See? Well, there actually is an organization behind the scenes. A lot of churches actually sort of have chipped in and helped with that, because there's a very large Christian organization who had a mental health crisis, and I believe that that's who sort of helped bolster this economic crisis that the substance abuse industry had. Remember, the substance abuse sort of industry is connected to housing and the criminal justice system as well. These people get into trouble, and because they have drugs, they have illegal substances, and they go to jail, and then they have to get rehab, and then they have to get re-educated, and so it's connected to school money and school loans and housing and that kind of, and then mental health. We have dual diagnosis. I believe there's starting to be a link and a hookup between we're having an association, sort of an unconscious association, and a criminalization of mental health in our minds that's starting to take place as well. So, this may be kind of no big deal either, but my question is, in terms of the rehab, what's the quality of that? See, I am for the decriminalization of drugs. I am not a proponent of this for complete abstinence. I don't think it works. I don't think it's a good idea. I think there are valuable things we get from some of these substances that alter our consciousness, especially from psychedelics, but also from some of the other things, from cannabis, and even from alcohol sometimes. Now, here's the thing. This is something interesting that I think about alcohol. Alcohol, how it works with us, is it paralyzes the part of our brains that control judgment and reasoning. What does that mean? That means that as soon as the alcohol hits the part of your brain that controls the judgment and reasoning, okay, so what's the part of your brain that decides whether or not you have more to drink? That's the part of your brain that controls judgment and reasoning. See, what I say is, why don't we just tell people that? People are not that stupid. Okay, I mean, people are stupid. Okay, that's like a saying, we say that all the time, or some people do, but I don't really think so. I think, in these drug education, alcohol education classes that people have to pay, if you get a DUI, you're mandated to pay money to take an education class on drinking. Do they tell you this? Do you need to pay that much money to have somebody tell you that, really? I'm telling you that right now for free. That's what it does. And I think once you know that, maybe you'll think about it next time. that when you're drinking, and it doesn't matter whether it's wine or beer or gin or whiskey or how much the whiskey cost, it's that when you drink it, as soon as it hits that part of your brain that is controlling judgment and reasoning, at some point you're not going to have such good judgment about whether or not you have more. So you might want to be careful. That's all. You know? That's it. But if you don't know that at all, you know, you're in the wrong boat. But what I'm saying is to make it this whole moralistic conundrum. I mean, you can. It can be very ceremonial. And the studies they've done, actually, when they started, you know, deciding whether it was a disease or not, you know, they found that actually when you treat alcohol as a sacred thing, those are the cultures in which there was the lowest incidence of alcoholism involved. And that's kind of interesting too. But they just kind of, remember when I was telling you about deciding these, when they were still using real scientific method to decide whether alcoholism was a disease or not? How come they just like flush that to the side? You know, there's something that you could ask yourself, or we could. This creation of it into an industry. And if you think to yourself for a minute of all the other pharmaceuticals that are related in some way to this disease, the antidepressants, if you take dual diagnosis into consideration of this disease pattern, of this disease umbrella, meaning this substance abuse thing, along with dual diagnosis, we've got quite an elephant here, or monster, whatever you call it. And I'm just not going along with it. I'm not. It's for profiteers and Kool-Aid drinkers. Thanks for listening. I know I've forgotten something, but I'm going to be making more videos. And there's something else, too. I'm not doing it in this video, but there's another piece of narcissism that I want to talk about. And I've been spending the last couple of days watching all hours and hours of stuff on narcissism, things that are out there on YouTube. And there's a lot of great stuff. It's not that there's right or wrong stuff. It's just that I have something else different that I want to add. Something about reflection that's just not out there. That I want to do, but I'm not going to do it right now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.